Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number LB4311C-400-600. This is a 4x4 single acting spring hinge, contract grade, lube bearing, steel base, primed for painting. This is in every respect a typical 4x4 spring hinge, with the exception that it has 1/4 inch radius corners, which maybe that is the definition of typical for this. I'm thinking square corner naturally, coming from a commercial background, but 1/4 inch radius, very typical for your 1 3/4 doors, residential in nature, probably a 20-minute fire rated door. Garage entry, attached home sort of situation, attached garage in a home sort of situation would be a typical application for this. You wouldn't really see a 4x4 on a hollow metal frame at all. You could maybe on a frame that is residential in nature, like a frame that has snap-on casing sort of design. Going to have a template pattern on the screw holes, which is a typical location for 4x4. Is going to have, again, the 1/4 inch radius. Let's start with dissecting the part number. First of all, LB stands for lube bearing. It's a concealed, maintenance-free sort of bearing construction, proprietary to Bommer. 4311, that part number specifically means contract grade. This leaf is 129 thousandths thick, I believe. 130 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness. It's going to have a template pattern on the screw holes, and speaking of screws, they are included in a complementary finish. You're going to get all wood and all metal. 1/4 inch radius. Okay, it is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves there that the hinge is meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. The -400, the C means contract grade. That means that the leaf thickness is heavier or thicker than a non-C hinge, which would be about 96 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness, something like that. The 400 means that this hinge is 4 inch tall and 4 inch wide. Height is the first dimension on this hinge. The 600 means two things. That means that it's both steel based and it means that it is prime coat painted. So it's going to be a prime coat over a steel, available in several different architectural finishes. Now, there is a link below this video to the installation instructions, and if your order comes in a box, they'll be printed on the back of the box. If they're not, you can link back to them. Okay, so let's go over the installation instructions now. First, how many spring hinges do you need? Well, let's discuss that. Considering that we're talking about doors really only up to 3 foot by 7 foot. 85-pound doors, they'd be looking for 2 spring hinges. 110-pound doors, they'd be looking for 3 spring hinges. And you can mix and match this with a standard commercial grade hinge because the axis of pivoting and the thickness of the leaves will be compatible. Okay, I'm a fan of all spring hinges, even when the guideline says 2. Here's the reasoning. Well, not for the obvious reason, but here's the practical reasoning. The quantity of spring hinges that you have is, to me, like a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they can pull a lot of weight. When you have additional spring power or extra spring power on reserve when the door is opened, the better, more predictable sort of operation you'll get out of the door. I'm not really a fan of spring hinges for closing the door. A spring to close a door is something that's inherently not controlled. Hydraulic control would be is better in my opinion because you can control the sweep part of the closing arc and the latching part. A spring is just set it up and it gets it way closed under spring power. So I have found that while you can get the door open and get it to start to close, if you don't have ample spring power, like the torque of a tugboat, it's difficult to get that door to latch all the way. And if it's a fire-rated door, and very likely the door that you're using these on is fire-rated, you have to be not only self-closing, but self-latching as well. And if your spring hinge, doesn't allow the door to predictably and reliably get closed, you no longer have really a fire-rated door at all. So if you have a condition by which you are on the borderline, certainly go up to the next quantity of hinges. If you have a hollow core door and it's 2'8" by 6'8", one is pretty much going to get it done. However, that door's got to overcome the resistance of the air pressure. It's got to overcome the weight of the door and the fact that it's opening and then having to bring it to a closed position or an open position, stopping it there, and then getting the door started from a stop, okay, and overcome the resistance of the friction of the latch bolt hitting the strike plate. Even with a 20-pound door, you might not have predictable, reliable sort of operation because you need that spring power on reserve in the critical last 10 degrees of the opening without setting the spring hinge tension so high that you're getting the door to move just through inertia very fast through the closing cycle, just so that it's got enough inertia to get to the closed part of the cycle. So anyway, you can always add more should you need, and if you had too many and you had too much spring power, you can always back them off. And speaking of backing them off, let's talk about setting the spring tension. Okay, this order, every hinge that you're going to get, well, every order will have a tension rod and a tension pin, that silver pin. This order happens to have 2 hinges in it, so there are 2 tension rods. When you install this hinge, install it so that the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door. Down here there's not a tension collar. Insert that into one of the holes and turn it clockwise. And as you do that, you reveal new additional holes. And it's into one of those new additional holes that you insert a tension pin. Maximum 3 holes is what they're looking for from Bommer. And that is how you go about setting it. You might have to adjust it through changes of seasons. In the summer, this might be a 3-flat, and you've got the front door of the 3-flat with these spring hinges. In the summer, the windows are open in unit 2, okay, and that air pressure can just come right on in and through, and that door will slam. So you'll probably go and back these off a little bit. Well, in the winter, when everything's buttoned up tight, you might have to increase that tension a little bit. Anyway, when you have additional spring hinge on reserve, you have the ability to work a little bit more dynamically within a certain range. Bommer is a comprehensive manufacturer of all things spring hinge related, and it's their double-acting 3029 series that they're really a household name for. But it's not only that, they have commercial and architectural standard hinges, just swing clear, half mortise, half surface, full mortise, full surface, the entire spectrum of hinges. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, and right above it, it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer LB4311C-400-600 spring hinge or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.